Philippine Society of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, PSBMB, Central Luzon Chapter spearheads all the PSBMB activities and other related endeavors in Region 3. Members are composed of researchers and educators from agricultural and technological research and development agencies and academe in Central Luzon. Philippine Society of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, PSBMB, Central Luzon Chapter spearheads all the PSBMB activities and other related endeavors in Region 3. Members are composed of researchers and educators from agricultural and technological research and development agencies and academe in Central Luzon. Philippine Society of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, PSBMB, Central Luzon Chapter spearheads all the PSBMB activities and other related endeavors in Region 3. Members are composed of researchers and educators from agricultural and technological research and development agencies and academe in Central Luzon.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I know you guys are excited for our webinar for today, but we will be officially starting exactly 1 in the afternoon. And I am seeing here now sa ating po mga attendees na meron po tayong several attendees na ang pangalan po ay Alvin J. Aban. So that is our IT uh, working group po dito sa ating webinar. The reason for that one po is you directly entered the Zoom meeting without po the registration, which is okay naman po. But is there any option po ba to rename your tawag po nito, mga names? Kasi po hindi ko po ma-identify saan Doc K. Doc K, I know you are there. Yeah, yes, Doc K. Doc K, kaya niyo po bang i-rename yung self niyo, Doc K? Alright po, para po malagay ka namin as panelist. And we do apologize for these small technical problems we're experiencing right now. Pero for our participants po, kindly check if Alvin J. Aban po ang inyong name at kung kaya niyo pong i-rename with your exact name, it would be better po. Hi everyone, it's me again, Ivan, and thank you for patiently waiting. We are now currently figuring out the problem or the small technical problem we're experiencing now. And gusto ko lang po sanang i-announce sa ating mga participants na we will be refreshing po our Zoom link for today. So please refresh your Zoom link and Ayan, hello, good afternoon po again. This is Ivan. Um, Lahat po ng mga naka-Alvin J. Aba na participants po, pinromote po namin as the panelists. So you can rename po yung mga pangalan nyo on the correct uh, name. So pag na-reflect na po dito ang totoong name nyo, iaano po namin, ibabak po namin kayo as participants. Doc K, if you are still there, at Alvin J. Aban po ang inyong name. Pwede po bang pa-rename Doc K? Kasi tatlo po dito si Alvin J. Aban. Or probably po open your camera para makita ko po kayo. Ako na lang po ang magre-rename. Ganon. Pasensya na po again sa ating technical issues. I cannot start. The host stopped it. Okay.
Hello, you unmuted me pero video-wise, stop. It's being stopped pa rin.
Okay, so Doc K, ikaw po ito nagsasalita.
Opo.
Okay po. Let me just rename you Doc K.
Thank you.
Okay. And how are you, Doc?
Okay lang. I hope you guys are okay din.
Yes, opo, Doc. We are okay. Doc, we have a slight changes po in the program. Did Doc Arlen inform you already po?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Okay. Thank you po, Doc. Ayan. Okay. So, time is it? 12. Doc K, can you try to open your camera?
Ayan. I was able to change the name na.
Okay, there you go.
Can you see me na ba?
Yes, Doc. I can see you very clear.
Okay, kasi I can't see myself sa Zoom.
Try to change po the view into speaker view or gallery view.
Okay. Try ko ulit.
Yes.
Speaker view. Ayan, nakita ko na. Okay. Thank you.
Po, Doc K. Okay. Relax po muna for now. Thank you. Okay, we have other 3 Alvin J. Aban. Let's see.
Ay, hala. I renamed someone Dr. K. Modina. Hindi pala ako yan. I'll.
Okay po. Okay, we have now several participants. Is Dr. Annalisa T. Ong Lim in the attendees na po ba? No?
Hi, good afternoon. This is Dr. Anna. I'm not able to start my video and share screen. Pwede magpa-co-host?
Yes po, Doc K. Wait lang po.
Alvin, parang si Dr. Ana is the one speaking.
Oo, si Doc Ana po yun.
I'm so sorry. All right.
You'll need to promote me to co-host.
Good afternoon, Dr. Anna. We already promoted you as the co-host. Can you try to open your camera? Okay. Good afternoon po. Welcome. Dr. Anna, okay po ba yung pag-share natin ng screen?
Yep.
All right. I'll mute lang po. Yes po, i-mute po muna kita. Thank you po. Dr. K, do you want to try your share screen first?
Oh yeah, sure. Sige,
Okay.
I'll share my screen. Yan ko
Yep.
lang.
Mhm.
Share ko. Yeah, looks like it's fine.
All right. Yes, I can see it. All right. Thank you,
Okay,
Dr.
I'll
K.
stop my
All right.
sharing.
We'll just
Thank
call you a
you.
bit later. Thank you.
Philippine Society of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, PSBMB, Central Luzon Chapter spearheads all the PSBMB activities and other related endeavors in Region 3. Members are composed of researchers and educators from agricultural and technological research and development agencies and academe in Central Luzon.
Hello, once again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ivan Patrick Bacano Tuwala, and I will be your webinar host for today. And I would like to extend, on behalf of the PSBMB Central Luzon chapter, thank you for joining us today. And I know we had some technical issues earlier, but we will be able to continue this webinar and hear the presentations of our invited speakers because we have prepared two medical experts that will provide us real facts and information about the COVID-19 pandemic that we are facing right now. And without further ado, I would like to introduce as well our rapporteur for today. We have Miss Jenny Fernandez, Assistant Professor 2 of Pangasinan State University. And we also have one of our moderator, Miss Faith Lorraine Magbanwa, Science Research Specialist 1 at the Fisheries Biotechnology Center here in Muñoz, Nueva Ecija. And since last year that we experienced the COVID-19 pandemic, our civilization was able to fight back. We started by um, the lockdowns in different cities and countries, and then we started the contact tracing to minimize the spread of the disease. And one of the latest intervention is the COVID-19 vaccine, as well as the PPEs that were provided or were introduced to local people to limit and prevent the spread and infection of COVID-19. For today, we will be able to listen to two experts that will be discussing about current health protocols in the Philippines, as well as an overview of the COVID-19 vaccines available. So without further ado, let me call in the current president of the PSBMB Central Luzon chapter, Dr. Casiano H. Cheresca Jr. for the opening remarks. A virtual round of applause, please.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Before anything else, allow me to express my sincerest gratitude to our PSBMB Central Luzon chapter working committee who willingly extended their time and energy to organize and make this event possible. Special thanks as well to our dear guests, Dr. Kathleen Ann Modina Ange and Dr. Annalisa Ong Lim, for accepting our invitation to be our resource speakers in today's webinar. To say that the COVID-19 pandemic
is being recorded.
has changed the world and our lives would be an understatement. The pandemic has indeed greatly affected how we work, learn, and most importantly, how we interact with others. As social distancing guidelines have led to more virtual presence, both personally and professionally. Because of this pandemic, we coined the term new normal, which refers to our new way of life as we adapt to measure necessary to slow down or stop the transmission of this deadly virus. The whole aim of this webinar is to essentially disseminate information and continue spreading awareness about this coronavirus disease. In this webinar, we will be learning relevant topics, particularly on the current health protocols to avoid COVID-19 infection, and an overview on the vaccines available today. The knowledge that we will be learning from our respective guests will surely be of great help in realizing our ways forward as we navigate ourselves through these trying times. To our attendees, so I think mostly are professionals, senior citizens, now of course sa mga bahay po natin, yung mga nanay, yung mga tatay, at mga students, mga bata. I hope they will find this webinar fun and insightful. I encourage you all to listen and absorb the information discussed by our guests, and without hesitation, ask questions about the topics. We want your curious minds to be heard. Without further ado, allow me to open this webinar by recognizing the valiant efforts of our healthcare professionals and all those who are at the forefront in the battle against the novel coronavirus disease. Thank you, everyone, and looking forward to an afternoon brimming with learnings and insights. God bless us all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kachana Chereska, for that very warming welcome to our participants. But I know everyone is excited right now to listen to our speakers, but I would just like to inform everybody that we had a slight changes on the flow of our presentations. We will have Dr. Anna Lisa T. Ong Lim as our first speaker and will be followed by Dr. Kathleen Ann Modina Ange. And as of this moment, I would like to call in Dr. Arlen de la Cruz to introduce our first speaker. Doc Arlen.
Hello, everyone. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you our speakers. So today, the PSBMB Central Luzon chapter invited experts in the field of medicine to help us learn and give us more knowledge, and so that we can have a better understanding on the things that we need to do to keep ourselves safe from COVID-19 as well as our loved ones. Okay, so sabi nga po, we have some changes in our schedule. So I'm going to introduce to you our first speaker who will be talking about the overview of the COVID-19 vaccines. Okay, she is none other than Dr. Annalisa T. Ong Lim. Dr. Ong Lim is a professor and attending pediatrician at the University of the Philippines and also in the Philippine General Hospital. She is a fellow of the Philippine Pediatric Society, where she serves as a member of its Board of Trustees. She is also the immediate past president of the Pediatric Infectious Disease Society of the Philippines. Dr. Ong Lim received her MD from the University of the Philippines. She completed her residency in pediatrics and post-residency fellowship in pediatric infectious disease at UP PGH, where she is also now the chief of the Division of Infectious and Tropical Disease. Okay, as part of the Philippines COVID-19 response effort, Dr. Ong Lim serves as a member of the DOH Technical Advisory Group, the IATF Technical Working Group on COVID-19 variants, as well as the Interim National Immunization Technical Advisory Group for COVID-19 vaccines. Dr. Ong Lim has published extensively on pediatric health and infectious disease and is heavily involved in clinical trials of pediatric vaccines. So this includes vaccines for measles, mumps and rubella, polio, pneumococcal disease, and influenza vaccines. She is also a regular speaker on topics relating to pediatrics, infectious disease, vaccine, and clinical trials in the Philippines and throughout Asia. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, let us all welcome Dr. Annalisa Ong with a warm round of virtual applause. Okay, Doc Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arlen, and thank you to the PSBMB Central Luzon chapter for the very kind invitation to join you this afternoon. I've been asked to talk a little bit about COVID-19 vaccines, and let me check if my screen is working so we can start without any delay. There. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Doc, we can see your
Okay,
very
thanks.
clear.
So we're going to be talking about an overview of COVID-19 vaccines. And basically, we're going to try to answer just 3 questions. First, why is vaccination necessary? Then, what are the available vaccine technologies? And then go on to some factors that should be in our minds as we consider whether we should be vaccinated and if there are options in terms of which vaccines to receive. The WHO is keeping a running tally of the number of cases and deaths that have been reported since the pandemic was declared. And as of last week, there have been about 180 million confirmed cases with almost 4 million deaths. And these numbers are really quite mind-boggling. They're very abstract because I doubt if anybody has any idea of what these numbers actually look like in terms of real people. So what I usually like to do is transpose it to something that's more familiar to our personal experience. And in particular, the number of deaths reported, 3.9 million almost, corresponds to the population of Quezon City. So parang sinabi na lang din natin na itong global deaths na to is equivalent to each and every person in Quezon City having died of COVID. And if you think about it in those terms, it becomes a little bit more real. Now, looking at the DOH dashboard, we see that, again, as of last week, there have been almost 1.4 million cases reported to the country's tracking systems. Of course, not all of these cases continue to be active. We have about 50,000 or so active cases right now. But for a country with very meager resources, this additional 1.4 million cases that have been tallied means another drain on the resources that we have, the healthcare capacity that we have to deal with all of the other infectious diseases and non-communicable diseases that continue to be a burden for our country. The 50,000 cases or so that remain active are scattered all over the country, and I'll be showing you the hotspots a little later on. But out of the 1.4 million cases, almost 20 plus thousand have died. Truth to tell, in comparison to other countries, this is quite an impressive statistic because, again, we don't really have a lot of resources to spare, and keeping this down to this number is quite an accomplishment. However, because these deaths are very personal to us, I'm sure not one family has been left untouched by COVID. We've had relatives or friends who have been sick or died. This statistic is something that we continue to want to improve because, of course, we want to prevent more deaths, more illness from happening. This graph shows us the story of the pandemic in our country since we started tracking the numbers. And the first peak that was recorded earlier last year, about August, was actually the time when the healthcare professionals, the different professional medical associations called for a timeout to be able to regroup and strategize as to the most effective way of addressing the pandemic. Of course, with the timeout came a community quarantine or a lockdown, which because it decreased the mobility of people in the communities, led to a decrease in the numbers. We actually had significant decreases over the succeeding months in October, such that by November, the reproduction number had decreased to less than 1. And we were hopeful that this would mean control, no, of the situation. But unfortunately, with the December holidays coming up and the anticipated increase of mobility, this peak that you see here actually corresponds to exactly 2 weeks after December 24 and illustrates that anytime quarantines have been loosened up, there has been a corresponding surge. Now, this latest surge that we've seen is a result or happened or peaked in April rather, and also coincided with the detection of some of the variants that are already being transmitted in the community. So we're talking about the alpha and the beta variants. First were detected at about this time in our country and are considered to have contributed to the surge of cases. We also have, for reference, a listing of the areas where the most number of cases are being reported. And in the past, the leading contributors have always been NCR, Calabarzon, and Central Luzon. And totaling about more than 800,000, this represents over half, no, of the total number of cases reported thus far. Unfortunately, however, even as NCR has started to reported lower case counts, other areas in the country have taken over. And specifically, we see increasing numbers of cases in Region 6 and Region 11, and specifically from Iloilo and Davao City. So what we see here is a pattern where as cases are being reported from the NCR and lockdowns are implemented within this region, travelers coming from NCR are probably being allowed into the different areas. And because the containment strategies may have been suboptimal, this has been the source of spread for those regions as well. The PDITR strategy may be familiar to you because this is something that has been in operation since the start of the pandemic. And it actually parallels strategies that are in place for many different countries as well. Prevention focuses on personal measures like the wearing of face masks and physical distancing, as well as hand washing, together with community interventions like lockdowns and quarantine community quarantine measures. No? Detection in the form of testing and tracing is also emphasized, as well as isolation and treatment of those individuals who are identified as positives. Reintegration is implemented for people who have recovered from illness. But you will see that in common across these different platforms is the need for compliant behavior. People need to wear their mask properly, to implement physical distancing, to submit to testing, to provide details of their contacts, and also submit themselves for isolation and treatment. And we know that for any intervention that requires behavioral change or behavioral modification, there is a fair chance of failure, because it really does depend on compliance. So what we need to move on to the better normal or the new normal is something that actually is independent of behaviors. And that is where vaccines come in. Vaccines are known to be a very effective public health intervention, and across the board for many different vaccine preventable diseases where programs have been implemented, there has been a significant decrease in terms of reported cases, anywhere from 92 to 100%, depending on the pathogen and the program that is in place. So I hope with that, I've been able to show you that much as we have so many other measures, to utilize to control this disease, vaccination is going to be necessary and will probably be the game changer in terms of finally being able to control the spread of this disease. So now let's look at what are the available vaccine technologies so that we have a better understanding of what these vaccines can do. Now, vaccines are again quite familiar to us, but what may not be top of mind for many people is the fact that decades typically pass before a vaccine is able to become accessible or becomes available in our public health setting and in the private clinics. So for example, it took about 3 decades for chickenpox vaccine to be widely available. Flu mist is a inhalational flu vaccine that has been available in the US after 3 decades of development. Our cervical cancer vaccine and the rotavirus diarrhea vaccine took over 10 years before it came to the market, while the more familiar pentavalent 5-in-1, 6-in-1 vaccines that are used in our clinics and health centers for kids took about a decade to develop. In contrast, we all know that COVID was only discovered in December of 2019, and by December of 2020, there was already a vaccine available for rollout in other countries. So barely a year passed and there was already a vaccine available. So this might be a source of concern for some people who might think that the speed over which this vaccine was developed meant that compromises were taken for safety and efficacy measures. So let me show you the typical paradigm or the typical timeline for the development of most vaccines. It takes about 5 to 10 years of preclinical testing using laboratory and animal models before we even go into the clinical testing phase between phases 1 to 3, which involve more and more human volunteers looking at various aspects like safety, efficacy, dosing frequency, dose ranging, and so on and so forth. So each of these phases will take 3 years, and just putting both preclinical and clinical testing together, that's easily 20 years before a product becomes available and licensed for use to the public. Now, this is the normal paradigm. But with SARS-CoV-2, what has happened is a process that allowed for several of these phases to occur simultaneously. So the timelines were collapsed, and it became possible for a vaccine still undergoing phase 3 trials to be used by the public and to be utilized for the pandemic response. So this figure shows the traditional paradigm where sequential development has been emphasized primarily to conserve the intense need for resources, both financial, manufacturing, and manpower resources that are needed to develop this very expensive formulations. However, because the pandemic required us to think out of the box, as it were, government and private funders determined that even if it became necessary to put in extra resources for vaccine development, that they would accept this risk, so to speak, for as long as a product would be available in the shortest possible time. So some steps were allowed to start as others were winding down. So we have overlapping rather than a linear sequential development process. And this overlapping phases allowed for shortening of the development time while ensuring that all the steps would still be in place. No? So of course, this required more resources, a greater acceptance of resource loss, but this was deemed necessary because of the impact of the pandemic. The WHO maintains a dashboard of vaccines that are clinical and in preclinical development. You will see here that this was as of last week again, 184 vaccines were already registered as being in preclinical development, while another 104 vaccines are in what is called the clinical phase. So typically, for most vaccine candidates, you'll see maybe about 10 different vaccines, and that's already quite a number. But COVID being the problem that it is, it has warranted many different approaches to try to be able to provide different solutions, no, to the pandemic. And we're actually quite blessed to see that there's so many different candidates, no, more than 200, almost 300 candidates, because if you look at what happens when we get to phase 3, barely 10% even make it to the almost finish line. And if we had started off with a smaller pool, then it's entirely possible that we actually might not have anything useful even at this point. So because there are so many different candidates, this has actually been able to spur earlier availability of the different vaccines. Now, among the different platforms available, it is still the inactivated virus platform that predominates, followed by protein subunit platforms at 33%. So I'll be showing you later some examples of these platforms. Suffice it to say that it seems that even with the current state of scientific advancement, it's still these classical technologies that remain the focus of vaccine development. So I'm sure you're very familiar with how vaccines work. We basically train the body to produce its defenses or antibodies by exposing them to weakened or inactivated pathogens or parts of the pathogen. And eventually, as the body encounters the live pathogens, no, then it is ready to defend itself when that time comes. So basically, dito sa sistemang to, pinapagana natin yung katawan. Pinagpa-practice natin siya sa mga mikrobyong mahihina na or patay na para gumawa ng mga sundalo para pagdating ng totoong mikrobyo or yung buhay na mikrobyo, malakas na mikrobyo, nakaredy na yung mga katawan natin, meron na siyang panlaban. Hindi na kailangan pang matuto kalabanin yung mikrobyo kung hindi nakaredy na at may depensa na. Now, if we extend this concept to the COVID virus, makikita natin kung paano gumagana yung mga bakuna laban sa COVID. So this diagram or this figure shows us a representation of the COVID virus. Para siyang isang maliit na bola na pinalilibutan, no, ng mga maliliit na pako, no, na siyang nagre-represent ng tinatawag na spike protein. So itong spike protein na to, tutulingin natin siyang susi na fit doon sa lock na ACE2 receptor. Si ACE2 receptor para naman siyang doorknob, no? Na pag nasusian na natin ng tamang susi, papayagan ng pagpasok ng virus sa ating katawan. So makikita natin yan dito, no? Fit silang dalawa at papasok ang virus sa ating katawan para magkaroon na ng infeksyon. Now, kung babalikan natin yung antibodies na nabanggit ko kanina, kung meron ng available na antibody, instead na yung susi, etong si spike protein ay didikit dun sa doorknob, dito siya ngayon magko-connect dun sa antibody para hindi na siya magkaroon pa ng paraan na pumasok sa cell at maging source ng infection. So, ang goal ng katawan natin ay magkaroon sana ng ganitong mga antibodies, no? So, pwede kang magkaroon ng antibody, makatapos kang magkasakit, pero ang problema, hindi natin alam kung makakaligtas ka sa sakit or dun sa komplikasyon ng sakit. So, ang gusto nating mangyari is sana, hindi na tayo magkasakit at meron na lang tayo ng antibody at makukuha natin yun kung tayo ay magpapabakuna. So, dito natin nakikita, no? Kahit ano pang bakuna yan, ang ating objective ay magkaroon ng panlaban at itong panlaban na ito ang siyang sasangga dun sa virus. So let's look at the different available platforms para mas maintindihan natin itong konseptong ito. Yung unang tinatawag na whole virus technology, siya yung mga ginagamit sa mga bakunang pamilyar na sa atin tulad ng bakuna laban sa tigdas, sa bulutong tubig, sa flu, sa hepatitis, no, na matagal na nating ginagamit laban sa iba't ibang sakit. Ang whole virus platform na available ngayon para sa COVID ay yung Sinovac at Sinopharm vaccines. Now, sinasabi ng mga scientists na teka, baka naman mas madali kung kunin ko na lang yung spike protein, yun na lang ang aking paramihin, yun na lang ang aking ilaman sa bakuna para maging target, no, ng katawan at gawa ng panlaban. Total, yun naman ang mahalagang parte, hindi naman kailangan yung buong virus. Yung spike protein lang naman ang ating gustong maging target. So, etong technology na to, medyo matagal na rin natin kilala. Siya rin yung ginagamit na technology para sa ibang mga bakuna laban sa flu, sa hepatitis, pati na rin sa cervical cancer. At sa mga iba't ibang COVID-19 vaccines, kasama dito yung Novavax na maaaring nababalitaan nyo na rin. Now, dahil inuulit-ulit natin yung halaga ng spike protein, nag-isip din ng mga scientists, meron pa kayang ibang paraan na maipasok natin yung spike protein sa katawan, liban dito sa paggamit ng buong virus o pag-manufacture ng spike protein mismo. So ang naisip ng mga scientists na isang paraan is kuhanin yung instruction material, yung genetic code galing sa virus, ipasok siya sa ibang virus na hindi nakakasama sa katawan, pagbitbitin yung virus na yon ng genetic code para yun na lang ang gamitin ng katawan na maging target laban sa sakit. No? So ito, kinuha natin yung genetic code galing dun sa coronavirus, pinabitbit natin sa ibang virus at pagkaturok, naging target siya ng paggagawa ng bakuna. So itong viral vector technology na to, hindi rin naman masyadong bago kasi ito na rin yung ginagamit sa mga bakuna laban sa Ebola, no, isang nakakamatay na sakit sa Africa, at mga bakuna na ginagamit in veterinary medicine. Now, ang viral vector vaccines na gamit na ngayon, no, ay yung mga AstraZeneca vaccine, yung Sputnik or Russian Gamaleya vaccine, pati na rin yung nababalitaan nating single-dose Johnson & Johnson or Janssen vaccine. Finally, meron pang ibang paraan na naisip ang mga scientists. So instead na pagbitbitin ko ng genetic material o ng instruction code ang isa pang virus, yun na lang mismo ang ituturok ko sa katawan para hindi na magkaroon pa ng kung ano-anong reaksyon. Itong genetic material na to, ibabalot ko na lang, no, sa parang fat layer para hindi siya madurog kaagad pagkaturok. Tapos, gagamit siya ng makinarya ng katawan natin para mag-manufacture ng spike protein at pati na rin ng depensa. So ito siguro sa apat na nabanggit ko, ang pinakabagong teknolohiya, and yet hindi rin natin masasabing bagong-bago at ngayon lang ginamit. Kasi para sa mga sakit tulad ng cancer, meron ng mga personalized vaccines na gumagamit ng ganitong klaseng proseso at nagagamit na rin siya sa paggagamot ng cancer. The fact that we had experience on this was actually the reason why ang bilis-bilis mag-shift, no, to repurpose. Kung dati ginagamit siya sa cancer, konting modification lang, nakita na pwede pala siyang gamitin laban sa mga infectious diseases. At in fact, ito yung unang mga bakunang na gamit sa iba't ibang parte ng mundo. Si Pfizer at si Moderna ay nabibilang dito sa mga tinatawag na mRNA vaccines na ngayon ay alam nating mabisang-mabisa laban sa COVID. So having shown you that vaccines work by getting our body to produce soldiers, that there are many different platforms and technologies available. Ang mga technologies na ito ay matagal nang ginagamit sa iba't ibang klaseng bakuna. At naipakita rin natin kanina na meron ng magandang basis or evidence to show that other infectious diseases have been controlled by vaccines. Gusto natin malaman ngayon kung ito bang pag-roll ng COVID vaccines ay nakatulong sa ibang mga bansa kung saan nagkaroon na ng mas malawakang paggamit ng mga bakuna. So again, as of last week, makikita natin dito yung rates of vaccination sa UK, sa Israel at sa US. Sila kasi yung leading countries sa ngayon. Kita natin na bawat isa sa mga bansang ito ay lampas na sa kalahati ng kanilang population ang nabakunahan nila. Tayo sa Pilipinas, dahil nung Marso lang naman tayo nagsimula, mga 6%. So this is closer to 10% now, no? And bagong-bago pa kung tutuusin ang bakuna sa atin. So kung titingin tayo ng experience ng ibang bansa, maganda sigurong makita kung ano na nangyari dito sa tatlong to. And I'm sure nababalitaan nyo ngayon na kunwari sa US or sa Israel, pumapayag na silang hindi muna gumamit ng mask. At gayon din sa UK kasi nakikita nga nila na mas bumabagal na ang pagkalat ng sakit. In particular sa UK, magandang tignan yung kanilang experience. Doon sa mga blue lines, ipinapakita yung dami ng mga kaso sa mga individuals age 60 and above, so yung mga senior citizens nila. Makikita natin na pabagsak ang dami ng kaso ng positives, ang dami ng mga na-ospital, pati na rin yung mga nagkaroon ng moderate or severe illness at yung critically ill. Nangyari ito matapos magsimula yung kanilang vaccination drive. Nga lang dahil nagkaroon sila ng isa pang lockdown in between dahil dumami nga yung mga kaso, gusto nilang alamin kung sino ba or alin ba dito sa dalawa ang talagang nakatulong. At nung kinumpara nila yung data from the third lockdown versus their previous lockdown, yung second lockdown na tinatawag, nakita nila na sumobra-sobra pa dun sa second lockdown yung pagbagsak ng mga kaso at na ospital. So therefore, these excess cases, they attributed to the impact of the vaccination drive. So ngayon na naipakita na natin na magiging mahalaga ang kontribusyon ng bakuna sa pagpigil ng pagkalat ng sakit at naipakita na rin natin na yung teknolohiya na ginagamit sa mga bakuna ngayon laban sa COVID-19 ay siya ring mga teknolohiyang nagamit na natin sa bakuna na naging epektibo at ligtas laban sa mga kilala na nating sakit tulad ng tigdas or polio. Ano naman ngayon ang dapat nating isipin kung tayo ay tatanungin kung magpapabakuna ba tayo or kung papipiliin tayo ng bakuna. So karaniwan, when we choose a product, a service, a medicine, no, ang gusto nating makita, yung question of mabisa Pero ang gusto ko sana maintindihan ng lahat is etong efficacy na ito ay hindi lang kinukumpara as is in this chart. Dahil kailangan nating maintindihan na impact on severe and critical disease. May ibang mga trials na tumingin sa endpoints tulad ng mild and moderate disease. May mga bakuna na ang isinali dun sa kanilang mga trial nila ay mahirap natin ikumpara sa isa't isa. dahil yung mga pinagdaanan nilang trials ay iba't iba rin ang qualities and features. So therefore, what we're saying is, it is not prudent to actually use these numbers as a basis for making a choice between one or the other vaccine. In fact, ang pwede lang natin sabihin sa mga bakuna sa ngayon is lahat sila ay pumasa dun sa standard. Baselines that have been set by different regulatory authorities para makatanggap ng tinatawag na emergency use authorization ang bawat bakunang ginagamit sa mga bansang yon. So lahat sila pumasa sa standard. Hindi pa natin masasabi kung yung 95% ng isang bakuna ay katumbas ng 50% ng isang bakuna. Hindi at dahil lahat sila ay may record of safety and efficacy, dapat silang gamitin. Tinitignan din natin karaniwan, no, kung may bisa ba itong mga bakunang to laban sa iba't ibang variant. At sa ngayon, no, dahil bagong-bago pa ang pagkakatuklas nitong mga variant na ito, mahirap din sabihin na final na ang ating data. May mga nagsasabi na effective ang AstraZeneca, for example, or Pfizer against whatever variant. Pero kung papansinin natin ng mga balita, halos araw-araw nagbabago ito. Ang isa pang kailangan nating tandaan is that the phase 3 clinical trials are still going on. Kung naaalala niyo yung isang unang diagram na pinakita ko sa inyo, mga 3 taon tumatagal ang bawat phase, no? And papasok pa lang tayo sa unang taon ng mga phase 3 trials. So even the numbers that are being shared are very fluid, no? They can change over time. And so the answer typically that we should be getting from our healthcare professionals and different authorities to the question of which vaccine should I get is actually dapat hindi yung brand ang tututukan natin kung hindi alin ba ang kaya kong makuha sa ngayon. Kasi mas mahalagang mabakunahan kaysa pumili ng brand ng bakuna. Merong nag-share ng isang example that I think is very easy to understand. Kung tayo ay nasa isang barkong lumulubog na, pipili pa ba tayo ng kulay ng life vest na ating gagamitin or tatanggapin na lang natin kung anong iaabot sa atin, no? So para nga tayong nasa isang lumulubog na barko, padami ng padami ang mga kaso na nagkakaroon ng COVID, pakalat ng pakalat ang iba't ibang variant na nababalitaan nating mas patindi, tumitindi, mas nakakahawa at mas nakakakos na malubhang sakit. So sa lagay bang yan, magdadalawang isip ka pa ba kung magpapabakuna ka at aantayin mo pa ba yung theoretically darating supposed to be dahil sa tingin mo ay mas mabisa? Hindi ba mas mahalaga na mabakunahan na sa ngayon kaysa antayin pa yung darating kung darating man siya? So it is less important which vaccine a person gets, but more imperative that everyone gets vaccinated. Also because of the fact that you really can't compare the numbers because they are not done in the same context and settings. So, kailangan bang ipagpaliban ng pagbabakuna? Pwede bang maghintay? So nabanggit ko nga, no, dumadami ang kaso, araw-araw nakakabalita tayo ng mga kakilala natin, kaibigan, mga kamag-anak na namamatay. Severe COVID can really be very dangerous, and the sooner you get vaccinated, the sooner you're protected. The other thing we have to keep in mind is when we wait too long, it's possible that we are contributing to the spread of the virus and the opportunity for the virus to mutate. So I'm talking to the scientific community, alam na alam ninyo that the longer virus is allowed to spread, the more opportunities it has to mutate and be conferred as a survival advantage. We're trying to avoid that by making sure that the greatest number or the greatest proportion of the population is vaccinated at the soonest possible time. And so those are really the thoughts behind the saying that the best vaccine is the one that's in your arm. So I hope with that, I've been able to show you that vaccination will be an essential tool to end the pandemic and that multiple vaccine platforms are available to supply the global demand. It becomes imperative to prioritize the vaccine that becomes accessible to us first rather than to wait and to choose because we never can tell whether we will be infected at any point in time. So with that, let me end my presentation and open the floor for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lim, for that very informative presentation for the overview of the COVID-19 vaccines available right now. Indeed, Dr. Lim provided us actual facts and numbers on the importance of getting vaccinated, considering the current COVID-19 pandemic that we have. And I know, Dr. Lim, that you are medyo maano na po ang time nyo, but would you still be able to cater probably 2 or 3 questions from our
Sure.
audience? I am
Yes.
seeing here very interesting questions from our audience, and I think everyone right now are really thinking po sa presentation na binigay nyo. And for our first question po, Doc Lim, we have this question na what I think they are really updated on the current news right now, and one of the latest news is the current surges in Indonesia despite the vaccinations that were deployed there. The question is it because of the Delta variant is the cause of the surges in Indonesia, and how many % of those affected with COVID-19 are already vaccinated?
So Ivan, the issue in Indonesia has received a lot of press coverage. Unfortunately, we don't really have the actual scientific reports, no, coming from the area for us to be able to validate what's being shared in the news. No, so once again, I know this being a an audience of scientists, you understand what I'm mentioning. Kasi syempre, iba ang report to the lay public, yung mga detalyeng importante sa atin to be able to determine the numerator versus the denominators to determine the actual proportions are not in those news reports. No? So, siguro pwede nating ma-establish na tama, no, Delta variant yung isang dahilan kung bakit nagkaroon ng surge sa Indonesia. Alam din natin na may mga vaccinated individuals doon sa mga nag-test positive. Hindi natin alam kung yung inire-report is what proportion of the total vaccinated, no, para malaman natin kung ano ba yung efficacy na pinag-uusapan natin, at hindi rin natin alam kung anong status nila in terms of the vaccination, meaning nakailang dose na ba sila, ganun na ba katagal from the time na na-vaccinate sila bago sila nagkaroon ng sakit. Yun bang mga ni-report na nagkasakit ay symptomatic or asymptomatic? Anong klaseng mga kaso? Those are very important for us, no, to assess whether there was actually breakthrough disease and what severity was expected. Kasi kung babalikan natin yung kanina, no, hindi naman ginaguarantee ng bakuna na you will not be infected or that you will not pass on the virus. It does not guarantee sterilizing immunity or transmission blockage. The data that we have right now with respect to efficacy is mostly focused on its impact on severe and critical disease, no? Yung kanyang bisa para makaiwas sa matinding sakit o kaya sa malubhang sakit or sakit na nakamamatay. Yun lang ang data na meron natin. And in many countries, nakikita natin na ito yung result ng mga nababakunahan. Kung nagkakasakit man sila, hindi malubha ang sakit, bumababa ang dami ng mga taong namamatay dahil sa sakit kung sila ay nababakunahan na. In fact, in our country or in other countries, no, ang nababalita is that halos yung mga ina-admit, ang history nila not vaccinated. No? So that's actually anecdotal evidence also to tell us na mabisa ang mga bakuna.
Exactly. I do naniniwala po ako na the numbers being provided by the countries po na nangunguna sa vaccination ay nakaka-help po ang COVID-19 vaccines para ma-reduce po yung number ng mga taong critical, 'di ba po? Para yun po ang aim natin na hindi ma-overloaded ang ating capacity ng ating mga
That's
hospital.
right.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. Lim. And Doc, we also have another question here. I think some of the participants are really want to know po regarding po sa update sa development po kung meron na po bang chance ang ating mga Filipino kids and youths na magkaroon ng or maturukan ng COVID-19 vaccine. And additional question po is regarding the efficacy of the vaccine that is being rolled out in the Philippines. Considering po that most of the vaccines are being imported from different countries, they are curious about the efficacy of the vaccines once being imported. Parang meron po ba tayong may malaking epekto po ba ang logistics natin sa visa vaccine na maituturok sa ating Filipino people?
Yung usapin ng children, no, siguro this comes from the paradigm ng pagkabakunukan, no? Pero ibahin natin ang usapin ng COVID-19 kasi alam naman natin, no, from data and our personal experience, sino bang nagkakaroon ng sakit na malubha? Ito yung mga may edad at saka yung may mga sakit, no, those with comorbidities. So we are targeting a totally different set of individuals for this vaccine rollout. At kahit na available na, kahit na sabihin na natin na yung mga bakunang available sa ngayon ay pwedeng gamitin sa bata, dahil limitado ang supply, hindi natin dapat siya i-deploy sa mga bata, di ba? Kasi ang mga bata karaniwan either asymptomatic or mild disease. Wala tayong aasahan in terms of control, no? And healthcare utilization kung i-divert natin yung kakaunti nating bakuna sa mga bata when in fact, ang dapat talagang tutukan natin ay yung mga highest risk which are our A2 seniors and A3, those with comorbids, no? So sa ngayon, even as information is coming in na may mga brands na may EUA sa iba't ibang bansa at eventually magkaka-EUA din dito sa atin, hindi pa rin natin i-divert yung kakaunting supply natin sa bata. Isipin na lang natin, kung 10 ang kailangan bakunahan at 5 lang ang piraso ng bakuna na meron natin, kanino dapat natin ibigay? Hindi dapat sa bata. No? Mapapangunahan na naman tayo at walang katapusan ang mga surge kung gano'n ang gagawin natin. Now, yung tanong tungkol sa visa ng bakuna, I think that's probably pertaining to the logistics end, no, rather than the efficacies, kasi nabanggit ko na naman kanina yung efficacies, no. So, sinisiguro naman ng ating National Vaccines Operations Center, yung deployment arm ng vaccine program, na pag naihahatid yung mga bakuna sa iba't ibang lugar, ay nasusunod ang cold chain requirements, no? This is very critical kasi otherwise yung mga itinuturok sa atin ay hindi natin maaasahan na makakatulong. Very stringent yung requirements, maganda ang monitoring. In fact, kaya nga nahuhuli na paminsan-minsan merong mga hindi napapasunod or hindi nakakasunod sa requirements because may monitoring nga. Otherwise, di pasa na lang ng pasa at tinatanggap na lang yan ng mga centers, no? So the fact that there's monitoring, the fact that every so often we will hear reports na, ito kinailangan siyang i-discard kasi hindi nakasunod, minsan may nakatutok.
Thank you for the clarification, Dr. Lemons. Based naman din po sa aking personal experience when I got my first shot in Quezon City, kahit po nasa mga tables na ng mga doctors, the vaccine are actually contained in a parang cold vessel, parang ganun po. So kasi nakikita ko siya pag nag-administered. So I think it's easing the worry ng ating mga taong bayan regarding kung baka manawalan na ng visa dahil nga malayo-layo ang Pilipinas. And Dr. Lim, we do have a last question. And ito po ay regarding sa mixing ng vaccine. Like if you get a particular brand for your first dose and then you will get a different dose, what are your thoughts about it?
So sa ngayon, no, wala pa tayong recommendations to mix and match vaccines dahil wala pa tayong mga magagandang pag-aaral para mapatunayan na mabisa at ligtas itong mga strategy na to, no? So right now, the evidence points us towards using the same brand for dose 1 and dose 2 and following the recommended interval between doses. Let me extend that answer a bit, no, Ivan, kasi karaniwan ang karugtong ng tanong na to, pag natapos ko na yung series 1, tapos nakapagpa-antibody testing ako, mababa or walang nakita, pwede ba akong magpa-series ulit ng pangalawa kahit same brand or ibang brand? So wala pa rin tayong recommendation sa ganitong klaseng proseso sa ngayon. Again, looking at efficacy and safety, we have no proof that that will help. Now, if you have had your antibody test and you saw that mababa or wala kang titers, huwag kang kakabahan kasi ang isang pwedeng explanation niyan is that the test is not appropriate for the antibodies that you may have circulating in your body, no? Kasi alam naman natin that the test is only as good as the target. At kung hindi yan ang target na antibody na hinahanap, di syempre wala siyang makikita, no? So sa ngayon, the recommendation is receive dose 1, receive dose 2 from the same brand using the correct interval. No antibody testing because we don't know whether the test is appropriate for the antibody that you have. Neither do we have a correlate of protection. We don't know what level is the target. That's not known. There's also no recommendation to have a booster single dose after getting 2 or another series of 2 doses after getting your first 2. Wala pang evidence to support safety and efficacy of those particular interventions.
All right, thank you for that answer, Dr. Lim. And Dr. Lim, I know that you are on a tight schedule right now. Do you need to proceed to your personal meeting, or you can cater one more question?
Okay, let's have one last.
Okay,
Then I'll have to sign off.
yes, but this is a personal question from me, Doc, and also from the collated questions from my colleagues and my friends. Because like what I mentioned earlier, I recently got my first shot of Sinovac vaccine, and the doctor told me in the vaccination site na while they were assessing if there is an immediate what they call the side effects, they mentioned you're not allowed to drink alcohol in between your first dose and second dose. But they really recommended na second week after your second dose before you can take your alcohol. And I have people asking me personally for the past few weeks, asking me the same question, but I just tell them na maybe follow what the doctors are saying because they really know what the vaccine will do in our body. Can you give us, Doc, probably like a brief explanation? What is what could be the main reason if alcohol can interfere on the yung parang function po ng vaccine sa ating immune system?
Actually, wala namang ganong klaseng instruction, no? I think the basis behind all of these precautions that are being imposed after vaccination is really to avoid any reactions that we might misattribute to the vaccination. Alam niyo naman kasi ang problema sa bakuna is that ito yung bukod-tanging medication na ibinibigay natin sa taong walang sakit. But every other drug we take, it's because we're feeling something. At yung gamot na iniinom natin, para makontra yung simptomas. Pero ang bakuna, di ba, hindi ka naman magpapabakuna kung may nararamdaman ka. Sasabihin siya, magpagaling ka muna bago kita babakunahan. Therefore, ang nasa isip natin parati, kung may nangyari sa'yo after nagbakuna ka, sinong may kasalanan? Yung bakuna. Di ba? So, iniiwasan natin na mapagbintangan ng bakuna for any untoward events following vaccination by restricting all of these activities. Sinasabi, huwag ka na magpagod, huwag kang mag-alcohol, so on and so forth. But hindi actually warranted kung tutuusin. Now, siguro, Ivan, let me extend this answer to the basic concept, which is, lahat nga ba ng nangyayari after mabakunahan ay dapat nating ibintang sa bakuna? Kasi dito napapasok ngayon yung core issues ng hesitancy. Ang daming kinakabahan na magpabakuna kasi akala nila, ay kasi may namatay, ay kasi may nalumpo, ay kasi may nagganito, nagkaganyan. Binakunahan lang yan, nagkaganyan na siya. O di pa paano ngayon, Ivan? Kunwari, inalok kita nung second dose, ako na mismo pupunta dyan sa'yo. At ako na magtuturok sa'yo nung second dose mo ng Sinovac. Babantayan pa kita after 30 minutes kasi di ba dapat ganun, babantayan kita, di ba? Pero habang pinanunood kita, nakita ko yung buhok mong maikse, humaba, naging blonde pa. Sabihin ko, wow, magic. Bakit may ganun si Ivan? Pero, wala na, di ba? Parang bakit ko naman iisipin na related yan sa bakuna? Napakalayo naman. Pero, itinuro mo pa ako dun sa ibang mga kaibigan mo, Dok, pwede mo bang bakunahan na lang din si Ma'am Arlen, si Sir Paul, si Jenny? Total, nandito ka na naman, bakunahan mo na rin sila. O di, pagdating ko kay Arlen, ganun din, humaba buhok na. Hindi ko alam kung mahaba buhok ni Arlen. Humaba buhok na, naging blonde pa. Lalo pa kay Sir Paul, di takang-taka tayo lahat. Bakit naging blonde ang buhok ni Sir Paul? So dahil lahat na nung binakunahan ko at tinuro mo sa akin, pinuntahan ko sa bahay nila ay nagkaganoon, di ano pang sasabihin natin? Ibang klase itong bakunang to. Meron ng dagdag pang pakulot ng buhok, pampahaba ng buhok, liban pa dun sa protection sa COVID. So sasabihin na natin may causal relationship. Pero kung ikaw lang ang nagkataon na ganoon, paano ko naman ibibintang yan sa bakuna? Labo naman nun, di ba? Sobra namang, ang laki naman ng kasalanan ng bakuna. So we have to keep that in mind. Marami dun sa mga naririnig nating sabi-sabi, or even the reports, are actually not causally related. Maybe, or there are actually a lot of them that are coincidental. But because we take each and every report seriously, these are really monitored. And for these very rare events, very rare medical events, they're actually captured and used as part of the database para masabi natin, o sige, ito pag-ingatan natin sa ganitong age group or ganitong patient population, baka iba na lang ang ibigay natin. Kasi may ibang choice naman eh. No? So yun lang yung gusto kong iwan sa inyo. Coming from that question kanina of dapat ba iiwas ng ganito para maging safe, to the whole concept of gaano ba ka-safe ang mga vaccine. They're actually pretty safe, much safer than getting sick, di ba? And yung mga ina-attribute nating mga problema after vaccination, karamihan sa kanila, unang-una, walang relationship, no, coincidental. At yung iba ay hindi talaga relate, hindi man lang totoo, no? Kasi maraming sabi-sabi na hindi mo talaga maisip kung saan nahugot yung kwento. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lim, for all the clarifications and explanations that you have provided to us today. And you deserve po a very warm and very loud round of applause for providing us clarification po dito sa, kasi marami po ngayon talaga ang hesitant sa vaccine. I hope that everyone participating now learned from the presentation of Dr. Lim. And I know, Doc, that you need to go to a different meeting. Thank you so much again in behalf of the PSBMB Central Luzon Chapter officers and members for giving us your time and your expertise for today. Thank you po, Doc. And I would like to also acknowledge, Dr. Some of the questions po, nandiyan po si Dr. K, one of our next speaker actually, who are providing answers. It's just that Dr. Lim really needs to attend an urgent meeting. So we are very lucky that inuna pa rin tayo ni Dr. Lim. And as of this moment, can I call in Doc Arlen again to introduce our next speaker?
And hello, so good afternoon po ulit sa lahat. So after listening to Doc Ana, nagkaroon na ba tayo ng mas malalim na kaalaman at mas may kakayahan na ba tayo ngayon na kumbinsihin yung ating mga kapamilya, kaanak na mas lalo tayo magtiwala dun sa safety ng mga vaccines na available ngayon. So sana naman po ay marami tayong natutunan talaga. And now I am back to introduce our second speaker. So meron pa rin tayong pagkakataon na matuto pa ng may mga additional knowledge pa tayong mag-gain today. Kaya ilaan pa natin yung ating mga sarili because this time we are very happy to have Dr. Kathleen Ann Modina Angge. So she will be our second lecturer. So we can also call her Doc K. So Doc K was born in Calbayog City, Samar, and raised by her Japanese father and Filipina mother. She is a board-certified emergency medicine specialist, and since the beginning of the pandemic, she served as an emergency room officer in the ER COVID-19 area of the Makati Medical Center. Okay, so currently, she is the medical coordinator for Japanese Help Desk, as well as a life support instructor for the American Heart Association. During her spare time, so Doc K maintains the Facebook page, The Musketeer. So this is a public source of information about masks and ways of avoiding COVID-19. So in this webinar, she will talk about the current health protocols in avoiding COVID-19 infection in the Philippines. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, please join me in welcoming Dr. Kathleen Ann Modina Angge. Take it away, Doc Kay.
Thank you, Doc Arlen, for that wonderful introduction. So good afternoon, everyone. I'll be sharing my screen. So let's talk about how to avoid COVID while we are all waiting for our vaccines. Hold on, how do I do this? Wait. Oh, there we go. Okay, so let's remember the key apat dapat. So what does that mean? All right, so we all know that COVID-19 can be spread through many ways, no? If an infected person coughs, sneezes, sings, talks, no? They could release saliva droplets, no? These droplets can be greater than 5 micrometers in size, and it could land on people's skin or in surfaces, and that could infect other people if they touch the infected surface and touch their nose and touch their mouth or eyes. However, the CDC says that risk is only 1 in 10,000. Actually, that surface contamination is not really the way how people get infected. What people do get infected by, and it's just confirmed recently, is that COVID-19 is airborne. That means just breathing in a space, and that's closed, the virus can be suspended in the air for more than 3 hours, just like measles. So that's something we have to really be careful about. Okay, so if you remember this famous case in Guangzhou, China, that was last January 24, they found out that most likely COVID-19 is airborne because a number of people were infected because of this asymptomatic person from Wuhan inside an air-conditioned restaurant. No? They were all sharing the same aircon and everybody got infected. The people not sharing the same aircon in the same room did not get infected. So how do we avoid these kinds of situations? Number one, also, obviously, you have to avoid being inside. But let's talk about apat dapat. Now, apat dapat was suggested by the Healthcare Professionals Alliance Against COVID-19, or the HPAAC, which I am a part of, and the College of Philippine Emergency Medicine is a part of. Please do visit our Facebook page. It's super informative. And apat dapat means A, air circulation and ventilation, P, physical distance of 1 meter or more, A is to always use your face mask and face shield, T is time of interaction of an infected person or people you don't know of 30 minutes or less. But let's break it down one by one and look at the science. Okay, number one, A, air circulation and ventilation. So what the CDC has found out is most transmissions occurs in indoor environments, okay? The risk of infection being outdoors is around 10%, but that's actually a very conservative estimate. It's probably even less in real life. And then it's very important, if you're gonna be inside a space, you need to make sure that the space is well ventilated. How would you know that? You need to know the air exchanges per hour. What does that mean? It's the amount of air moving in and out of a room per volume per hour. Medyo technical. But if you work in a hospital or you work in biohazard labs, you would know that to prevent droplet infections, you need at least 6 air exchanges per hour. If you're dealing with airborne diseases, you need even a higher air exchanges, 12 air exchanges per hour. So if you're like at home or in the mall or whatever, how would you know if a place has a good air exchange? Well, there is a study made in 2010 in Hong Kong during the influenza pandemics. They measured air exchanges in clinics or in closed rooms, which is better, windows all open, doors all open, windows closed, or doors closed. So they did this. This was on the 2nd floor of a hospital. The air condition is still on. Now, if you see here, all the windows to the outdoors, and if all the doors to the corridors open, the air exchange is really good, about 18 to 22 air exchanges per hour, a lot better than the 12 minimum, diba? But even if you check here, if half of the windows are closed, or even half of the windows and doors are closed, the air exchange is still pretty good. So it's important, if you're going to be in an indoor space, to see if the windows or doors are open. So the CDC makes a really good infographic here. You would know a place has good ventilation if all the windows are open, the exhaust fans are open, all the fans are open, especially if they're pointing to the outside, or if they have a HEPA air purifier. That's also a really good thing to have. And air exchange is not great in a room. It's all closed. All the doors are closed. Wala kang nakikitang air purifier, air condition lang. Medyo you don't want to stay in a kind of place like that for too long. Okay. a lot of questions from patients. No, a lot of people have been buying this air purifiers. But which one is the best, and do they actually work? The Philippine COVID-19 Living Recommendations by the Philippine Society of Microbiology and Infectious Disease, or PSMID, they did make a recommendation that you can use a HEPA filter air purifier to improve air quality, to prevent COVID-19 and to control infection in adequate ventilated spaces, talaga indoor air-conditioned spaces. Pero it's a low quality of evidence and it's conditional pa. I mean, like, you can use a HEPA filter inside a room, but it's not your best option, no? And it's not a silver bullet, but it's still very helpful. Okay, so you see a lot on the market, yung mga UVC air purifiers or mga ions, ionizing air purifiers are the ones that you wear on a necklace around your neck. Not recommended. Number one, they don't work, especially ionizing ones. Number two, they produce toxic ozone, and that is irritating to the lungs, especially in an enclosed room. Ozone can build up and can cause really severe effects on your lungs. So you want to avoid that as soon as possible, as much as possible. So if you're going to choose an air purifier, definitely mga HEPA filters. HEPA 11, 12, or 13 are very good, no? But you have to make sure that the speed delivers the required air, ACH, the air exchange per hour. Actually, there are calculators online that you can calculate for this. Pero it's out of the scope of this discussion. I won't be discussing it. Pero a rule of thumb, basta never put it on auto mode. It doesn't really help in purifying the air kung auto mode. That's not really good. You should probably put it on medium or high speed, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's what I do with my air purifier at home. Okay. What's very important, if you plan to purchase an air purifier HEPA filter, no, you have to match the HEPA filter's capacity to the room size. So if it says for 30 square meters, hanggang 30 square meters lang. Don't try to put an air purifier in a 30 square meters in a 60 square meter room. It does nothing. Okay, so air purifiers, it's an option for indoor spaces. Or if you're looking to stay in a place, make sure the place has an air purifier. Okay, not the barriers, not the surface disinfection. I would actually really look for a place that has an air purifier. Okay, next on apat-dapat is P, physical distance of 1 meter or more. So social distancing, you've heard it for like a year already. Social distancing this, social distancing that. Pero does it actually work, or kaartehan, is it maarte, kaartehan lang? So this really good study in 2020, this is a meta-analysis. That means it pooled 125 studies, observational studies, to see if social distancing, mask wearing, or eye protection actually works. So very thorough analysis. So they found out if you are within less than 1 meter of a person who's infected with COVID, there's a 12.8% chance of transmission, or 1 in 10 chance. Not great. But if your distance is around 1 meter, the chance of transmission drops to only 2.6%, which is not bad. However, if it's every meter above 1 meter, increases the protection by twice. So 2 meter pataas, halos 0% yung chances of getting COVID from that person. So that's something really to consider. Like, social distancing really does work. Okay. Next, so I'll be focusing a lot on this about face masks, because I'm a face mask nerd, and a lot of people need a lot of education about face masks. What are they? What's the best type to buy? How to avoid fakes? Okay, so we do recommend always using your face mask and your face shield. Okay, in market, you usually see two kinds of masks. Number one, surgical masks. However, they are very loose fitting. So since they're loose fitting, it doesn't actually protect you from others. Okay, you protect people from yourself, but if they are infected and you're wearing a surgical mask and it's loose, it doesn't really protect you at all. Actually, the filtration efficiency of a surgical mask alone is only 50%. Okay, next, another mask that is available on the market in the Philippines are mga respirators, the N95 masks. Now this one, they actually do protect you. These are they protect you from respiratory or airborne diseases, but they're not comfortable. They're hard to breathe in, and they're not intended for public use, because ideally we should reserve these masks for our medical frontliners. Now, sa mga N95 masks, there are different letters in front, like N95, P95, or R95. That just basically means the resistance to oil. So N is no resistance to oil, P partially resistant to oil, R very resistant to oil. Pero if you think about viral filtration, any of them will do. And the number after the letter is the percentage and how much they can block particles. So 95 is 95%, 99, 99%, 100, 100%. Okay? So, sige, you know about surgical masks, you know about respirators, but what makes a good mask? There are two factors. Number one, super important, the fit. Definitely. So it has to be snug against your face. There should be no air gaps. And to do this, before every use of your mask, you should do a user fit check, which I'll be talking about later. Number two, you need to know the filtration efficiency or how well your mask filters, okay? So if you're gonna be in a heavily contaminated environment like an airport or in a crowded indoor area, you would probably need a 95% filtration efficiency of at least 0.3 micron particles in size. So that's the standard of the N95, the FFP2, the KN95, KF94, what have you. So if you see the picture here, Dr. Fauci is double masking with a cloth mask on top of a surgical mask. That actually is very effective. I'll be talking about that later. An N95, KN95 mask is also very effective against COVID infection. However, if you're gonna wear a surgical mask loosely and not even covering your nose or your mouth, baliwala, you will get infected. So that's proper mask wearing is super important. Okay, so I'll be showing you here. So this is fit. So a bad fitting mask is something like this, a plain surgical mask. And if you just wear it without adjusting it, you see these gaps and the red arrows. These are all the spaces that infected air can come in and infect you, okay? Some people have the parang false security. I have a mask, okay lang. But the fit is also super, super important. So if you switch or adjust your mask, for example, my husband here is wearing a KF94. That's my favorite kind of mask. I use this all the time. No? You notice there are no gaps here. No way that infected air can come in and infect you. Not only that, any air leaks in your mask, kahit surgical mask or respirator or N95, kahit N99 yan, decreases filtration by 30 to 60%. Can you imagine? It renders your mask useless if your fit is bad. Okay. So the CDC also made a study, very interesting here. So wearing a surgical mask alone only blocks particles by 56%, okay? COVID exposure by 56%. A cloth mask, 100% cotton is only 51.4%. Other cloth masks like polyester or neoprene is even worse, probably 10 or 20% I've seen from other studies. Not that great. However, if you wear a 3-ply 100% cloth mask on top of your surgical mask and you adjust it for the fit, make sure there are no gaps around your face, it increases the protection from COVID by 85.4%. If you don't have a cloth mask, you can knot the sides of your mask, make sure there's no gaps at the side. It does protect you by 77%. No? So if you're talking to someone without a mask, not infected, it decreases your exposure to COVID by 85.4% if you're double masked with a cloth mask. If the other person is also double masked, it decreases your exposure to COVID by 96.4%. That is just as good as an N95, provided everyone else is also double masking or wearing a good fitted mask. Very important ang fit. People ask me, can you wear 2 surgical masks on top? Hindi pwede. Why? Because when you wear a loose-fitting surgical mask, first layer, and you wear a double surgical mask on the second layer, it doesn't help you close the gaps on your face. Plus, it doesn't help increase the filtration on your face either. What increases filtration is a better fit, okay? Doubling the layers does not help at all. Probably a 1 to 2% increase in filtration, but unless you fix your air leaks, that's not gonna happen, okay? So it says here, do layer a disposable mask under a cloth mask. If you have an N95, a KF94, a KN95, an FFP1 or FFP2 mask, you do not need to double layer. It just makes life harder for you. What you need to really focus on is the fit of your mask. So how do we do that? How do I know if the fit of my mask is good? Number one, when you put on your mask, do a gap check. Make sure there are no open spaces between the mask and your face, okay? Number two, air check. When you breathe in and breathe out, check if you feel any air leaks or moving air at the bridge of your nose here, or at the sides of your face or sides of your mask here. If you do feel like heavy, like parang malakas yung hangin at the sides of your face or at the nose bridge, you must adjust it, no? So you either tighten the ear loops, you mold your nose wire better, no, you wear an ear guard, no, you wear an ear hook, or you choose another kind of mask because fit is super important, okay? Okay. So does size matter? You see this on the market all the time. Yung mga filters na PM 2.5. What does that mean? So PM means particulate matter size. The number after it is in microns. So PM 2.5 is 2.5 microns protection. But how does that help you against COVID? So let's take a look. So this really interesting study in 2010, that's for the influenza pandemic. So the measurements of airborne influenza virus and aerosol particles from human coughs found out that 42% of all your particles coughed out by an infected patient is less than 1 micron. So ibig sabihin, you need protection from sizes less than 1 micron or less than PM1. So sa tingin mo, you think these filters actually help you, PM 2.5? I don't think so. Okay. So other things, what happens if you really don't know if your mask has, what's the PM size of your mask? Let's take a look. Remember this, this is from Uniqlo. It's the Areas mask. Everybody super likes it and they think it's really nice. I don't. Why? When you look at this, people can be impressed by the 99% bacterial filtration efficiency. Blocks out bacteria and pollen. You notice it didn't say viruses? There's a reason for that. Because when a mask has what you call bacterial filtration efficiency or BFE, it only blocks out particles PM3 pataas, 3 microns and above. You need to be protected from 1 micron and below. So wala. Some masks, they boast now, oh, we have viral filtration efficiency. That's not very helpful either because it measures aerosols, again, 3 microns and above. Again, you need to be protected from microns less than 1 micron, okay? So what do you look for in mask labels? You need to find a mask that says it has a particle filtration efficiency greater than 95%. So when a mask has something called PFE, most likely, most of the time, the sizes are less than 1 micron. But of course, you need to look for the particle size of the PFE in the mask label. Is it PFE of 1 micron, 0.1 micron, 0.3 micron? Because it matters. But don't worry. If you don't know any of this, you just need to know the mask certification or the mask grading, which I will talk about in a few minutes. So let's take a look at this ad. So it says here 3-ply surgical face mask. And it says here BFE of greater than 99%. Sounds nice. And a PFE of greater than 98%. This is what you look for, okay? If you know your mask standards, an ASTM medical grade means that your particles that it blocks is less than 0.1 micron. So this is an excellent surgical mask. Okay, so again, if you don't know your particle sizes or whatever, you don't need to know that much. What you need to know is what is the medical certification of my mask. If your surgical mask is ASTM rated, for sure, it filters out 95% of 0.1 microns. Very excellent. But again, it's useless unless you fit it well against your face or you double mask it with a cloth mask on top. Now, if you have, for example, an N95 or KN95 or FFP1, for sure, it filters out greater than 95% of 0.3 microns. You are protected. So you notice the Chinese surgical masks here, which I see a lot in Lazada sold very cheaply, or I see in pharmacies as well. They only protect you greater than 95% of 3 microns. So BFE of 99% will not help you if you plan to be in a highly contaminated environment, okay? All right, so let's take a look at this. So this is a real ad of Life Mask. This is a real mask sold in Lazada. I personally own this. Let's see why. Because if you look at the circle here, it claims 95% of bacterial and particular filtration efficiency. Sounds promising, no? And it claims to have a medical grade standard of EN 14683. That's the European medical mask standard. However, yeah, greater than 95% PFE, but at what size? So if you look at the back of the box here, it says here, it's a PFE measured of 0.3 microns. So that's really excellent, okay? So that is what you look for in the labels or the packaging of your masks. If you don't know, I suggest you talk to the seller or you talk to the manufacturer. They should be able to give you the information you need. Okay, so since masks are expensive or masks are hard to find, can masks be reused? Actually, yes. The CDC does allow mask reuse, however, only during critical shortages, and you must know the risk because there's a risk of being infected when we're using masks if you don't know how to handle them properly. More than 30% of healthcare workers do get infected by COVID-19 by reusing masks. Okay, so at your own risk, So if you're going to use an N95, the CDC recommends the time method. So how do you do this? So after using the N95 in a highly contaminated environment, like in the hospital or the ER, we use this in my hospital, this method. At the end of the day, you store it in a paper bag. Hindi pwede plastic, it has to be a paper bag because it's supposed to dry out, okay? And you leave it at room temperature for 7 days. Don't touch it, don't use it. Just leave it alone for 7 days. Because in studies, most likely around 5 days, there should be no more COVID-19 on your mask surface anymore, most likely, okay? Afterwards, you can reuse the mask up to 2 to 5 times, as long, again, as the fit is good. If you think medyo pangit yung fit, it's loose, hindi maganda, maraming gaps, you need to throw that away, okay? And you have to make sure when you store your mask, you don't let like the straps fall inside the surface of the inside of the mask. That will contaminate it as well. You have to throw that away. So how about KF94 masks? That's my favorite mask, by the way. The Korean FDA actually says you can reuse them. If you use the KF94 mask in a low contaminated area, you can hang it in a clean place, okay? And then you have to wash your hands before and after touching the surface of the mask, of course. And then once it's dried, you can use it again. So you can use this actually up to 40 hours cumulative. So more or less it's probably a week. And you have to make sure that the fit is still important. If you use the KF94 mask in a highly contaminated area, like in the hospital or in the airport or in a place where there's a lot of people in the mall, you need to throw that out and reuse a mask. And then use a new mask. That's what I mean. Okay. All right. So how do you wear a reused mask? This is very important. You need to know all these steps so you won't be infected by COVID. Okay. So number 1, you must clean your hands before and after touching the mask or the respirator. So once you've adjusted the mask on your face, you must wash your hands agad-agad because we still assume that the outside surface of the mask can still be infected. Okay. If the fit is bad, you must throw the mask away. Kahit wala pang 40 hours or kahit wala pang 2 to 5 times, throw it. Because you need to know if the mask is not as tight anymore, kahit nag-a-adjust ka, there are more air leaks, kahit nag-a-adjust ka, there's visible damage, it's visibly soiled, it's visibly wet, you gotta throw that away. And then never ever touch the inside of your mask. If you touch it, you need to throw it because it's already contaminated, okay? Never touch your face after touching the outside of your mask because you need to wash your hands first because you might get infected. Okay, that's the risk. Okay. People also ask me, oh, sige, you can reuse the mask. Can I clean my mask instead? Kasi medyo nakakatakot just to always assume that the outside of my mask is infected. Probably. Kasi number 1, you must never use soap or alcohol on masks because if you do, minus 61% of filtration yan. So you render your mask useless if you spray alcohol or Lysol or wash it with soap or water. Absolutely cannot, okay? And UVC or mga UV boxes are very popular in the Philippines, I noticed. However, to really make sure that you get rid of 99.9% COVID viruses in your mask, you need an irradiance power level of 1,000 millijoules per centimeter squared or 10,000 joules per meter squared. That's an enormous amount of power. And unfortunately, no commercial UVC box sold on the market reaches this dose because I've tried. We measured it with like UVC sensors, does not even close to that level. Well, however, UVC boxes are very useful in decontaminating solid objects, but for masks, they cannot. So I suggest you do not use this method here in the Philippines. If you really want to go all out industrial for it, only the brand Osram can give UVC boxes of that caliber, but that's around 25,000 pesos per box. So there, I'd rather that the normal person will use the time method. Okay, you can also attempt to use dry heat to decontaminate your mask. Actually, the Taiwan CDC discovered that if you place surgical mask in a rice cooker for like 3 minutes, you can reuse the surgical mask up to 5 times. No, pero the thing is, you can't use a rice cooker anymore because it's contaminated na. So I don't really recommend this either. The U.S. Office of Home Defense has made experiments that you can decontaminate N95s using an Instant Pot. But then again, you can't use your Instant Pot anymore for cooking. It has to be only for masks. So I do just recommend doing the time method of the CDC or the Korean FDA method for masks used in low contaminated areas. Okay. For more information, the website n95decon.org is very useful if you want to know other methods how to decontaminate your masks. Okay. Okay. Also, a lot of things on the market are the new masks. Like, what are nano masks? The mga copper masks. Let's talk about that. So traditional masks are made from melt-blown polypropylene. So these are basically synthetic fibers made from plastic. So your surgical mask, N95, KN95, KF94 are made from this. Very safe, very long history of safety, absolutely okay to use, okay? Now, on the market, you see nanofiber filters or nano masks, no? Like this one, Air Queen from Korea. And the advantage of this is you can actually spray alcohol on it up to 10 times and you can disinfect it. Unlike melt-blown polypropylene, you cannot use alcohol on these masks. However, there are problems with this. Nanofiber masks have not been really investigated for safety. Okay, we are still investigating if, for example, if the nanofibers break up and you breathe it in, will it damage your lungs in the long run? We don't know yet. I sent samples to the Federal Institute of Occupational Safety in Berlin. I'm working with scientists in Berlin with that. I haven't had the results yet, but we'll let you know. Okay. Also, when you make nanofibers, you use toxic chemicals like DMF and DMAC, which damage the liver. And if you're gonna put that against your face, we don't know if that will really give you problems or not. Okay. Not only that, because of these safety problems, the Korean FDA is still investigating. That's why they are not KF94 certified. They're not used as medicals. They're not medical or surgical grade yet. They're only industrial grade. Okay, although they do have very good filtration properties, the safety is medyo, I personally do not wear them. Okay, copper, silver masks, they're not filtering material. They do not protect you from COVID if you use it alone. You can wear a copper mask or a silver mask on top of your surgical mask or respirator. That is fine, but to use it alone is really dangerous because copper masks inactivate COVID like after 30 minutes. So what happens to all the air that you breathe in through this hole within the 30 minutes? You will be breathing in contaminated air more often than not. So don't recommend those either. Okay. Also, a lot, very problematic here in the Philippines. There are a lot of fake masks. Like, I do not trust probably 99% of all N95 masks sold in Shopee or Lazada. Super sketchy. So the CDC is telling you, how do I know if this N95 mask is legit or not? Okay. Number one, do not trust the FDA label. You're not supposed to have the FDA label on the box. That's actually illegal. So that's number one. Number two, you have to make sure if you're going to look at the mask, it has what you call the TC approval number here on the mask. You're supposed to have the NIOSH label on the mask as well. It's supposed to have the lot and model number on the mask as well. Super important. Okay. Okay. Next. So let's take a look at these masks. So this mask claims to be NIOSH N95, but there's no TC approval number, there's no model number, there's no lot number. It's not, it's fake, okay? And even this one looks legit, but there's no TC approval number on the mask. And if you look at the NIOSH database, which if you want to ask where the NIOSH database is, I could show you, but later. This maker is not an approved NIOSH manufacturer. It's also fake. So that's something you have to really be careful about. Again, also, remember this? So a lot of people trust in this brand called Idolai. But the thing is, it's actually fake. It's not actually from Taiwan at all. It's from Jinrai, China, actually. So if this is fake, I don't know if this will protect you from COVID or not. Okay? If you're gonna get a surgical mask, you need to get something that's FDA approved, most likely. Okay, so if the price is too good to be true, it probably is. So KN95s and KF94s, cheapest I've ever seen is around 30 to 50 pesos per piece. Okay. You also get where you pay for. So you must always buy from an official store. Don't buy from those sketchy Lazada or Shopee stores and you don't know if this is an official brand or not. I don't recommend that either. Okay. So this one, if you want, you can screenshot this. These are all the brands that I trust. These are from all the official stores. Probably I've worn 90% of these masks because I love masks. I'm a mask nerd. So 3M is a gold standard. BYD is a very good brand. Kleenex is a very trusted brand. These are all from the official stores from Lazada. Uvex is also an official brand here. Bluna was trusted by N95decon.org to have like a 99% filtration rate. So I wear this especially, Bluna. And so guys, just be prepared for the 7/7 sale. So, but of course, always verify these claims for yourself. I can be wrong, no? So always make sure to ask the seller, look at the labels, ask the manufacturers any questions, okay? Okay, so this is a hot topic for the past few days. Do face shields matter? Actually, not really. What matters is eye protection, whether goggles or face shields. But let's look at the science of face shields. The CDC did make a study on face shield efficacy, but this was during the influenza pandemic in 2010. So face shields do have a 96% reduction in exposure to big droplets immediately after a cough. So if someone coughs next to you without a mask, the face shield will protect you agad-agad, 96%, bawas. There's also a 97% reduction of surface contamination of your mask. So it also protects your mask to be clean as well. And remember, when you say face shield, it has to be a face shield with no gap in the forehead. So yung mga hengde, the eyeglass ones that you wear, so I've seen people wear na may gaps sa forehead, hindi pwede po yun. But face shield alone is useless because it only protects you from aerosol inhalation by 23%. So no, face shield alone does not work. So I'm calling out all the celebrities on like talk shows or whatever that just use face shield alone. Absolutely will not protect you. And there was a study that shows if you have eye protection, the transmission rate of COVID is 5.5%. If it's no eye protection, 16%. So minus 10% yung risk to COVID if you wear eye protection. Even eyeglasses, normal plain eyeglasses, do confer some protection, but of course goggles are better because it wraps around. Okay, so the last one, an apat-dapat, is time of interaction of 30 minutes or less. Why this number? Is this arbitrary? Wala lang, feel lang namin 30 minutes or less. Actually, no, these are based on studies. So this study was done in a hospital setting, so it's a very highly contaminated environment. So it shows the risk of exposure to someone wearing a mask versus to someone not wearing a mask according to the time. So if you're wearing an N99 mask and you're in front of someone who is highly infectious, 30-second exposure, 99% decrease in infection. Great. After 20 minutes, a little bit lower, pero 94%, which is still really good. Paano yung mga tao that's not wearing N99 mask? Like for example, like a scarf. Like you see those motorcycle people, they wear those scarves. 30-second exposure to someone with COVID, 44% lang yung protection. And after 20 minutes, it halves in efficacy. 24% lang yun. So the keeping it short is better, especially if you're not confident in your mask. Try to avoid crowds. If you need to be with someone that you don't stay in the house with, just keep it short talaga for your best protection. And this is a really good chart by the Texas Medical Association. So while we're all waiting for our vaccinations, what are the levels of risk of activity if we go outside, even if wearing a mask and a face shield? So shopping at a mall is moderate risk, okay? Eating in a restaurant is high risk. So really don't want to eat inside a restaurant na air condition, na close all the windows. It is not safe. But we see a lot of people doing that. I don't know why. It's not safe. Eating at a buffet or going to a wedding, really not safe. Sorry. And the highest risk of all is actually if you drink at a bar. Absolutely not. No. Unless like everybody else inside is vaccinated, I do not recommend any of these activities. If you do have to shop at a mall, just make sure you wear a good mask, tightly fitting. You don't stay too long. Okay. Also, multiple layers of protection is important. So just one thing of apat-tapat, doing it alone does not work. You need to practice all of it. No? So if you physically distance, if you wear a mask, if you do hand hygiene, if you stay in places with good ventilation, if you quarantine, finally vaccines, these will all work together to protect you from COVID. But not one is a silver bullet. Okay, so we call this the Swiss cheese model of pandemic defense. Also, before I close, I'd like to let you guys know this really good website is called itstimetovax.com. So if you want to know anything about vaccines, mga vaccine myths, statistics, and also how to register for your vaccine in your city, please do visit this website. It's very, very nice. Also, if you want to learn more information about COVID prevention, these websites are very, very good. The CDC, the DOH, WHO, the HPAAC, so the Healthcare Professionals Alliance Against COVID-19 of the Philippines, very nice, no? Medline Plus, very good. Mayo Clinic, Harvard, WebMD, very good sources. I do not recommend Viber or Facebook. Please do not. No? I also want, if it's Facebook though, I do plug my Facebook page, wala lang, shameless, the Masketeer. So I talk all things math science, and how to avoid COVID. So thank you, and I hope everyone stays safe. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, even about vaccines. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. K, for that very energetic at sobrang busog at hitik na information sa yung face, particularly na on how to really choose the correct mask and how to identify kung saan na mga mask ang mas nakakabigay sa atin ng protection against COVID-19. And we do have some questions here, Doc K, but before we proceed to our open forum, I would like to acknowledge first some of the LGU personnel of the Science City of Muñoz, particularly from the health center, who are now participating with us. Thank you. And I think if may questions po kayo, kindly type na lang po sa Q&A for our speaker. And Doc K, also thank you for assisting a while ago for the questions intended for the COVID-19 vaccines.
No worries.
I have seen here na nagbigay na po kayo ng answers, and thank you po for the effort. But now we do have some questions here for you. The first question is from Dr. Rossi S. Abalos, and her question is, during this time, will you still recommend the strict use of face shield in addition with face mask?
Actually, no. What is more important is eye protection. If you're not going to wear face shield, definitely wear eye goggles. Definitely, no? Because like I said, it decreases infection of COVID by at least 10% in studies. Personally, I hate wearing face shields. I don't wear face shields outside of the emergency room. If I only wear face shields outside of the ER, if I have to go in a mall, because it's required, no? If you think you're going to be in a crowded area where people are not going to wear masks, pasaway sila, or they don't know how to wear a mask, like it's always like underneath their nose or on their chin, maybe wearing a face mask is more protective, no? Because you also want to preserve your mask being clean so you can reuse it again. But if not, it's fine. Just wear goggles, or like protective safety glasses would be best.
All right, thank you for that one, Dr. K. And we have another question here. Medyo nahihiya lang ang ating attendee, but she is curious po on how to properly dispose face mask and face shields. As as a biologist, isa rin po yan sa na-observe ko na we are trying to protect ourselves, but we are degrading naman our environment dahil sa ating mga
Yeah.
litters. So could you give us an eco-friendly advice or protocol on how we can dispose our face mask and face shields?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have any recycling protocols for a mask. We probably should, no? But for me, as much as possible, try to reuse your mask safely, or you use a reusable mask. There's actually really good ones out there na N95 level na washable, reusable. Like for example, Cambridge mask, Vogue mask, Black Mask Project in the Philippines. You can all order them from Shopee or Lazada. Pero if you need to dispose of your masks, definitely dispose them properly in a trash can. What I do is I even spray them with alcohol. Number one, to inactivate the virus. Number two, to render the mask useless. And it's best to cut them in half, because I don't know if you guys are aware, there's a thriving black market of used masks. Like people make kalkal the trash for your used mask and sell it to other people. So that's something to avoid as well. But definitely you can consider reusing disposable masks, using reusable face masks. Pwede din.
All right, we'll take note of that one, Dr. K. And we have additional question po from an anonymous attendee again. In addition to a face mask, is it advisable to wear face shields on an office setting and where we stay from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.? So I'm also curious with this one, Doc, dahil lahat tayo sa office. Go
Well,
ahead,
for me,
Doc.
what's more important actually in an office setting, the number one thing besides wearing a face mask, no, you need to have an air purifier in your office, no. If you can't open all the windows and doors, you need to install a HEPA filter, because that's the only way really to decrease the levels of virus in the air. Face shields, like I said, any eye protection is good. Face shield or goggles or safety glasses, eye safety glasses, that's fine. No, it doesn't have to be strictly face shield. But if you're OC about wanting to preserve your mask longer, no, so you could reuse it again, I would suggest using a face shield. But you don't have to. Basta you wear goggles or safety glasses, that should be fine. But if you're thinking about working in an indoor space for a very long time, I would highly suggest you invest in a HEPA filter for your office space. No?
Yes, Doc. Actually, we'll take note of that one here in our office. And just a follow-up question, Doc K. I remembered kasi when some of the municipalities or LGUs, para hindi na sila ganun ka-strict with the implementation of the activities of the people living there, like they are slowly allowing people to go exercise and run a few miles across the neighborhood, but they always advise them to wear a mask and a face shield. I'm just curious, Doc, would that impact on the physiological function ng katawan natin? We are putting a lot of force and consuming a lot of energy, yet we are covering the parts of our body where kung saan pumapasok ang ating oxygen. Is there like a scientific studies that were already published that wearing a mask and a face shield while doing workout will not significantly affect the level of oxygens in your body?
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely when you do something exertional, wearing a face mask doesn't really exert any effort, doesn't decrease your levels of oxygen at all. But from what I see, it can increase your level of work. It's uncomfortable, no, mainit, no. So that can happen, but it's not going to kill you, no. Like surgeons have done 10, 13, 15-hour surgeries in face masks, standing up, doing something very exertional, but they're fine, no? So definitely they do not impact your level of oxygenation. Definitely there's no evidence of that at all, but it can make you very uncomfortable. And I don't recommend face shields outside. What's the point? Like I said, 10% chance of getting COVID from the outside. And if there's no one, walang katabi sayo, zero yun. So like, what is the point of wearing a face shield outside? Because I personally don't. I never wear face shields outside. I just wear my glasses outside. Because where will it go? But if you're inside, then you wear a face shield. I don't mind people working out outside, exercising, jogging outside, provided there is really good social distancing in the open air, the risk for COVID is very low that way. Like I said, 10%. So as long as social distancing is being implemented, I don't see a problem. Definitely you still have to wear a mask, but not something as severe as probably an N95. Sobrang hirap yun. Like I've worn N95 to 12 hours straight. It's not fun, especially if you're doing something exertional. It's very uncomfortable. No, but it will definitely not impact your oxygen.
All right, so hindi dahilan na hindi tayo mag-exercise dahil
Yeah.
kailangan natin mag-mask. So thank you for that very good answer,
No
Doc
need
Wayne.
for facial, promise. No need for facial outside.
Okay po. And another curious question, Doc Kay,
Uh-oh.
is I recently saw on social media some ilang kababayan natin that are wearing this parang astronaut suit in a public market, yung parang may tabo and there's like a host behind it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
can you give us a clarification, like ano ang ano nito, parang impact? Does it really protect you from COVID-19?
Okay, so what they were wearing is a 25,000 to 30,000 peso PAPR. So that's what's that, powered air purifiers. That's the highest level of protection in the hospital. When we intubate patients, when we do surgeries, we use that. So what it does is it's that hood, it's a loose hood, and it filters the air and it blows filtered air through the face at all times. So you have positive pressure air. So you don't need a full fitting mask. It's a lot more comfortable, no? But yeah, the palenque is pretty dangerous because it's crowded, no? But it's open air. If you really want to spend 30,000 pesos on a PAPR to go to the palenque, I guess it's up to you. But I think it's unfair for medical workers who need that. You know, in Makati Medical Center, one of the top hospitals, we fight over that. No, we only have 2 PAPRs in the emergency room, and we fight over that with other departments. And then people are going out in the palenque using that. That sort of hurts me a little as a physician. No, but if you really want to spend that kind of money, I won't stop you. But yeah, that's the highest level of protection. But I think that is overkill. You know, for if you really need to go to the palenque, try to go in an open air palenque in hours where there's not a lot of people. And for me, wearing a well-fitting KF94, KN95, N95, or a surgical mask with a double mask na cotton mask on top, that's actually really good protection already, along with eye protection. That's actually equal to that. So that's why, unless you're going to open up a COVID-infected patient in the OR, you would need a PAPR for sure, because that's the highest level of risk. So I don't think using a PAPR in the palenque, it's not proportionate to the risk, in my opinion. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. K, for answering the questions from our attendees. I'm pretty sure that naliwalagan sila of all the questions and also the parang clarifications on wearing face shields and face masks to protect us from COVID-19. And Dr. K, then thank you again. And you can now relax a little bit as we proceed to our program. And as of this moment, I would like to call in the former PSBMB Central Luzon Chapter President, Dr. Apolinario V. Yambot, for the giving of the Certificate of Appreciation to our speakers. Doc Paul. All right, is Dr. Yambot here? By the way, I would like to correct what I mentioned earlier. Dr. Yambot is actually the former PSBMB National President. And we are lucky to have Dr. Yambot in our chapter right now. But is Dr. Paul there? Okay, I'm just double checking everything. All right. I guess Dr. Yambot is having an intermittent internet connection, but let me do the honor to read the citation of the Certificate of Appreciation to our two speakers for today. And let me read the citation. The Philippine Society of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, Central Luzon. All right. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Let me go back again to my reading of citation for the certificate. The Philippine Society of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology Central Luzon chapter awards this certificate of appreciation to Dr. Annalisa T. Ong Lim in grateful recognition for her resource speaker on the topic COVID-19 vaccine and overview during the webinar on coping and overcoming the stress brought by COVID-19, the ways forward, held on the 30th day of June 2021 from 1 to 3 p.m. via Zoom, signed Casiano H. Churesca Jr., PhD, President of the PSBMB Central Luzon chapter. And we also have the same certificate of appreciation awarded to Dr. Kathleen Ann Medina Ange for her topic on being vigilant in the new normal, current health 19 infection in the Philippines. Again, during our webinar held on the 30th day of June 2021 from 1 to 3 p.m. via Zoom, signed by Casiano H. Churesca Jr., PhD, the President of PSBMB Central Luzon Chapter. Let's give our speakers a big virtual round of applause. Doc Kate, thank you so much again for giving your time and expertise on the current COVID-19 protocols. And Doc Kate, so stay with us because we're going to have our photo shoot after our closing remarks. And let me call on now the Vice President of the PSBMB Central Luzon Chapter, Dr. Jerwin R. Ondan, for the closing remarks. Go ahead, Sir Ondan.
Before we finally end our program, let me thank once again our speakers, Dr. Kathleen of the Makati Medical Center and to Dr. Annalisa of the UP College of Medicine for sharing their expertise and time to all of us, especially on the importance of vaccine and the importance of following the current health protocols so that we can be able to avoid COVID-19 infection. Thank you once again and keep safe always. Thank you also to the people who made this activity possible, to the PSBMB Central Luzon members and officers, and to all who supported this activity. We all thank you. God bless and keep safe always. And see you once again in the next PSBMB Central Luzon activities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Undan, for the warm closing remarks. As much as we don't want to pakawalan si Dr. K kasi I know we have several questions pa regarding the health protocols on the COVID-19. We would like to thank everyone for joining us today. But before you leave our Zoom meeting, please fill up the evaluation form that will be provided in the chat box. There is a Google form for you to get your certificate of attendance. And once again, on behalf of the PSBMB Central Luzon chapter, the PSBMB CL chapter officers and the members, we thank you again for joining us today on our webinar. And we do hope that you will join us on our future webinar activities. So let me call the officers of the PSBMB CL chapter to kindly open your cameras for our photo shoot with Dr. K. Doc Arlen, Doc Cheresca, sino pa po ang ating si Doc Paul if he's back, Miss Jenny, our rapporteur. Okay, we have Hayan. It's so nice to see our andyan po si Doc Cass. Okay po, ayan. I'm just waiting for Mr. Alvin. Okay, are we ready? Okay, in 3, 2, 1, say cheese.
Cheese.
Cheese. Okay, thank you so much again, Dr. K, for joining us today hanggang sa photo shoot po.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you po,
Good
Doc K.
afternoon. Bye-bye.
I hope,
Thank you very much
yes.
po.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc Arlen, for inviting me po.
Yes, thank you po talaga.
Okay, I hope everyone po, ang ating mga attendees, we have learned very important lessons today from Apat Dapat on how we can actually protect ourselves against COVID-19 while waiting for our COVID-19 vaccine. I hope po na we will disseminate all the informations that we have learned today, not the COVID-19 virus. So let's be an instrument, not only in our family, but in our community on actually providing real facts and scientific evidence towards COVID-19, especially po sa ating COVID-19 vaccine. Once again, my name is Ivan Patrick B. Tuwala, your host for today. See you again on the next webinar activities of the PSBMB Central Luzon chapter. Bye.
The Philippine Society of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, PSBMB, Central Luzon chapter spearheads all the PSBMB activities and other related endeavors in Region 3. Members are composed of researchers and educators from agricultural and technological research and development agencies and academe in Central Luzon.